Dr. Glen,
Yes.
let's talk the 5 biggest mistakes that we often make during conflict. So this is like typical things that we ourselves might do or that we might see clients do when they are fighting with their, are we going to say spouse? We're going to limit this to
Spouse or relationships. And it's all coming from all the clients that we're seeing, like all the general common things that are taking place.
Yeah. So everything that we're going to talk about is kind of typically in that spousal relationship, but I think this stuff pretty much applies to every relationship.
All relationships. And I think the common theme here is self-awareness.
Yeah.
Not blame awareness and point the finger, but self-awareness.
Yeah. We had five common things, but you boiled them down into one.
Correct. It's kind of like, you know how the 10 commandments went down to, it was like 20 to 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
This is 5 to 1. Don't be an a-hole and expect the other person you're talking to be nice. We can end it right there. Podcast finished.
I can't deal with Dr. Glen again. I'm too tired. It's been a month or so. It's been a month since we've been back filming new episodes.
It has been a while.
Okay, let's get right into this. We're going to start by saying welcome to 12-Week Relationships. This is your place for better relationships in weeks, not years. And when we say relationships, we're taying all of them.
The little rascals. Like it. Ote. Working up. Yeah, sure.
Starting from the relationship that you have with yourself and working on outward. And yes, despite our, I don't know what you would say this is, like keeping it light, keeping it fun.
Yeah.
We are speaking from a clinical and scientific standpoint, even though we have fun doing it. All right. What I want to mention first before we jump straight into this is that we are going to be launching the online coaching program soon. We're going to be launching first for individuals and then later down the road for couples. And we're about a month or so out on our first cohort, which we're going to limit the size down to maybe 10 or 15 people-ish. At least that's what we're thinking right now. So the best way to be notified about that is to just join the waitlist on 12weekrelationships.com. It doesn't matter which waitlist, it all goes to the same place right now. And then as soon as those programs are available to sign up, we will have them send out notifications to everybody on the waitlist. So soon we'll be able to actually service quite a few more people because we keep getting, every day we get DMs like, where am I at on a waitlist?
Yeah.
And it's thousands long right now.
So. I know. And we're out in August in terms of the individual coaching. But this is exciting because when it's put together, every person has to be really proactive in this process. So they're going to learn a lot about themselves.
Yeah. And one last thing, our sponsors basically for this are ourselves, like we're just kind of talking about the podcast. So the last thing I'm going to say is if you're not ready for coaching or anything like that, if you want to help us out, what you can do is jump onto iTunes and leave a review for the 12-Week Relationships podcast. If it's a positive one, if it's a 5-star one, do it.
Just do the DM. But yeah, 5 stars would be nice.
If it's not, if you have critique, just send us a direct message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we do read all those and we actually very much appreciate every single thing that you guys have written. For us, knowing that we're making a difference is kind of a big deal. So you ready to get into this?
Let's do this.
Okay. Number 1, the biggest mistakes that we make during conflict. And I guess we're going past like the basic stuff, like screaming at each other and, like being an a-hole. You know what you said earlier. Just generalness.
Down from 5 down to 1, right? Basically, you're being an a-hole and you're expecting the other person to be nice, right?
Concrete. Let's get concrete with this.
So number 1 is this is the biggest mistake people make. And then they assume that they're the healthy person and then that the other person is unhealthy, the person that they're with. Mm-hmm. And that if the other person changes, that everything will be okay. And that's the argument that a lot of people make. But if you look in the mirror, if you're a healthy person and you're complaining about the partner that you chose, you wouldn't have chosen that partner if you were a very healthy person. Right?
That's very true.
And then so what ends up happening is maybe you can say, okay, I'm healthier than you, which may be true, but you're still in that spectrum of unhealthiness. Maybe you're on the healthier side of that unhealthy spectrum, but still you're still in that unhealthy space.
And I almost feel like you can extend that out to coming into the conversation, into the argument, into whatever it might be, because maybe they don't think of themselves as more healthy, but they think of themselves as more correct. Like it's almost the same thing, right? I can think of myself as, well, I'm the one that's in the right and you're in the wrong. I'm the one that's healthy. You're the one that's unhealthy. I'm the one that's like, in each of these instances, you're basically Well, you're not recognizing your own role in choosing the relationship, in being there, in the conflict itself, all of it. It's very similar, no?
No, agree. And once again, that's where the accountability comes into play. And then, once again, it's a very blanket problem solving method of you change, I know what's right. And so just make it happen. And if you do that, we don't have any problems.
I think we need a conflict for us to play out, Podcasts are always better when we can role play a little bit.
Back to acting, huh?
Back to acting. I don't know if I'd call this acting. This is
method acting.
Method acting. Okay, so we're a couple. What's our conflict? What is the thing that we're fighting about? Because I do want to contextualize this, thinking that you're the one that's coming from the correct or the healthy standpoint.
Okay, so I am the person that wants you to be more emotionally available. Mm-hmm. And when you come home from work, I expect you to listen to me and be totally emotionally available to me.
That's a good one. I'm going to be the person, so I'm just going to play the other role of this. Yes. So if that's what you're expecting of me, I'm going to be a person that, which is very typical, that just doesn't really enjoy talking about emotional things.
Yeah.
This is a very typical thing, especially in the kind of like more masculine, feminine dynamics, mm-hmm. where oftentimes, the person that, and I don't want to say guy, girl, because it can go, we could be talking same-sex relationships where one person is more masculine in the way that they kind of like show that trait, right? The trait of like not really wanting to talk about emotions. So I don't want to attribute it to sex per se, but we will attribute it to maybe a more masculine type of trait, right? And usually the way that we're seeing it is the guy is kind of more shut down. Yeah. And I don't even know if shut down is the right word. It's just that
it's a different way of wanting to approach problems or express themselves.
Yeah, he doesn't like to express emotion, like talk about it, just like sit there and talk about it, but she does. Mm-hmm. And so you're that person. Okay. You want to start the argument?
All right. How's your day?
It's good.
All right. So I know you just came back, but I want to talk now.
We're talking.
I told you about this before. You need to be available to me when you get home.
I'm literally right here. I'm available.
But you're not, though.
What do you mean?
I can't even say what I want to say. I haven't even gone into the topic yet.
What? But you're saying it. What do you want to say?
But we're not even like sitting down or anything right now.
Okay, let's sit down.
Okay. All right. So first of all, what I want to say is I had a really tough day.
Okay.
Yeah. And I want you to know that, I went through all this stress, and I just want to point out the fact that when I have a tough day and then like I called you today, you still weren't available to me.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting one because it almost feels like, coming out of the role for a second, it almost feels like you're treating me like your therapist as well. Like you're kind of like dumping on me.
Well, not only that, but see how like all I see is what I want to see. And mm-hmm. even though you're making attempts, you're like, okay, like I'm here, what's going on? All of that is being disregarded.
Yeah.
Because I just want to make my point. So even though I'm saying something that I want, I'm not even allowing you to do that.
Well, and ultimately it's going to come to a place where I just say to you, I just don't really like talking about this stuff. Like this isn't what I enjoy. I don't want to talk about emotions. I don't want to. And then you're going to say, see, you're the one that's unhealthy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, that's my point. See, you're shutting down.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything. I told you.
And so what happens in this dynamic, and this is typically like when they come to the therapist, when they come to the coach standpoint, they're going to play that out, and it's going to be the person that is emotionally willing to discuss that's basically pointing out that flaw in the other person. Problem is it's not a flaw. Mm-hmm. Like it's okay for one person just not to enjoy talking. Emotionally about things. Agreed. There's not one place, there's not one position that's higher or more healthy than the other. In fact, I might say that it's actually the person that doesn't need to talk about it that is more healthy. Mm-hmm. Because the other person, you are basically treating me as your therapist. You're not resolving those own issues, and you're also assuming that my day wasn't difficult. You're assuming that I didn't have any problems. You're assuming that I don't need to talk about anything. And that it's a one-way. So it almost feels like in terms of maturity, in terms of understanding, well, I would be the more healthy one.
Agreed. And then once again, I'm making an argument that I'm being really self-aware and emotionally available, when in truth, I'm not. Mm-hmm. And what you're making attempts trying to reach a middle ground, but I'm not seeing that, or I'm not even rewarding that. So all I'm doing is just complaining. And ultimately what I'm saying is do what I want, listen to my complaints, and you take it.
Yeah.
And then when it gets called out or it gets reversed, and then we'll go, okay, what about you? Like, what are you not getting? What can I do for you?
More booty.
More booty. And let's do more outside activities, or let's do activities that I enjoy, because this is how I express myself. And then I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Then there is no compromise.
So let's carry this forward now, because we're basically, let's stick to this. I like our role playing right now. Let's stick to these roles.
Okay.
We didn't get names. That's okay.
Yeah, no names.
We don't need names.
We don't need names.
Okay. Number 2 would be failing to take ownership during the conflict. So basically failing to recognize your own responsibilities. And that's kind of what you were, chiming in at.
Alluding to, yeah. So if I was in a healthier space, I'd be like, babe, because we have no names, right? So,
yes,
darling.
honey. Can I deviate for 1 second? I had a friend who he's like, you should do a study on this. His name is Lee. You should do a study on this. I'll guarantee that anybody who refers to their partner as babe is going to get divorced. And I was like, that's a very powerful insight, Lee.
Let's look into it. Maybe it's true.
Let's not worry about that. But anyway, that was his insight. So the fact that you called me babe, that's a problem.
So see, it's a warning sign.
Okay, so babe, go on.
All right, so so I know that I could be very difficult. I know that I could be very close-minded. I also know that I could be very insensitive to the fact that when you come home from work, I'm making a lot of expectations, and I apologize for that.
Hell yeah, as you should.
Yeah, and I'm not a.
That took a second for you to register.
I'm like,
there was a delay.
Yeah, I was like, I guess babe is divorced, right? But I apologize. I know that I don't engage in a lot of the activities and I want to change that. So I really want to get to a space where we can have connection and time, and also doing things that you would like to do.
Yeah, so that would be a vastly different approach.
Yeah.
As soon as you come to me and you start saying those things, because the 2 entrances was very different. The first way that you were entering the conflict was basically, I'm just, and it's not necessarily that the other person's just getting home or whatever it might be, but it is usually kind of, when you think of it, you just say it, right? Mm-hmm. And you say the thing that immediately puts me on defense. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just not available. Well, we aren't talking. When do you have time for me? And immediately I start defending myself. Mm-hmm. Well, we're doing it now. Because you're on the attack. The second way, it's very much like you're acknowledging your own role in this. I know I'm not, interested, or I'm not doing these things. And I do want us to connect more though. And you're presenting something where we can actually have a discussion about. And here's how I might take that. I might go, yeah, I know, honey, that you want to talk more and get into like deep and emotional stuff, but I guess that's not really me. Like, for me, that is draining. But here's the thing. I do love my hikes. I love going out and going for runs. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing, like, why don't we go for a hike or go and do something together that's something activity based, and then let's have a discussion during it. Let's talk and get that, because that would mean something to me. And we would be out and doing something. And that's usually when I like to think about stuff anyway, is when I'm out and doing something in nature.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I need to be more transparent too. When I say that I want deep conversation, translation, I just want you to listen to me and validate my feelings.
Oh, got it. So you don't need me to like...
I don't need your advice or telling me that actually irritates me. So when I say that, that's not really true. Like, maybe at the end, if I really ask you for something, but I'm just that's just my way of processing things. Just like you work out and you share that you process things that way. This is my way.
Yeah. Well, and I also love cooking, as you know, honey. So when I'm cooking and doing things, why don't you because I'm usually just going to watch TV or something during that time. Like, I'm not really paying attention to the TV. It's just something there. So why don't I just turn off the TV, and why don't you share with me those things?
Yeah. And then I have to learn to not take that as an insult that you're not paying attention. That's just your way of doing things.
Well, I'm definitely going to be paying attention, but what you're telling me is that, like, I don't need to present solutions. And if I don't need to present solutions, if I'm just listening and validating, I kind of need something to do with my hands. Otherwise, I get anxious. And if you're presenting problems and I can't do anything, like, it's difficult.
And I could see, because this is not a natural thing for you. So for the fact that you could stay busy, I totally understand that.
If anybody had this level of a conversation, we'd say that they're
very healthy, right? That's a very, because it doesn't go that way.
Our role play has gone.
It doesn't go that way, right? And scene, right?
And scene. This is how two therapists would resolve an issue with each other, completely unrealistically. But that's the premise of it, though, is that regardless of, it's not going to be that smooth or whatnot, but at least opening with that acknowledgement of ownership and your role in it presents a place to actually have a conversation, as opposed to like setting the ground for war.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the other common thing that happens. And once again, I think it kind of goes back to the other point. So many times the partner will say, because they're like, I just want transparency and I want you to connect with me. And then the other partner, they're exasperated. They're like, I'm being transparent. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. It hurts me that I can't reach you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. And then instead of, oh, you're being real with me. Oh, I see that. I appreciate it. It becomes, that's my point. How can you do? And then they just shut down more. And then they'll look at me like, see? And then it's like a common thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3, we have the hypocritical behavior that is brought to the table.
Yes. Do as I say, not as I do. Right?
This is an interesting one. I often feel like in many instances, we might not even recognize it. Even the people that are very aware of it. And I have an example of this one recently, that I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were having like a conflict, a little issue that was kind of like business related. And I said, this isn't something that I would take to our business partners. This isn't something that I would go. And then immediately after the conversation, I did take it to the business partners. And my friend was like, dude, you literally just did exactly what you said you wouldn't do. And I took a minute and I looked at it. I was like, holy crap, I did the exact thing. I said that I wasn't going to create drama by telling everybody else. And I did it in a different way. Like, I wasn't trying to create drama, but I literally said I wouldn't take this to the others. And then 5 minutes later, I did. And I was like, man, despite, it doesn't really matter what you know or your level of experience. These are things that we're constantly working on. So going back to our role play, what would be an example in that context of hypocrisy?
So for example, I'm making a demand that you need to be emotionally available. You need to listen to me after work,
mm-hmm.
right? You need to just sit there and know and mind read what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and
I'm
blaming your closing off, but
yeah.
I won't work out with you.
Mm-hmm.
I won't do any of the things that you want to do, like go out of the town and just do like basic things. I don't do any of that with you.
There's also no space in those conversations for me to share my perspective.
Yeah.
There's no, like, you're not emotionally available for me.
Yeah.
But you're expecting it of, to you.
Yeah. So I'm acting like I am available, but I'm totally closed off, maybe even more closed off than you.
Mm-hmm.
That's being a hypocrite.
That one's interesting because I don't know from my standpoint. If you're aware of it happening, I would probably say the best way to do that is to say, like, for me, so going back to that role play, right? You say, I need you to be emotionally available. Go ahead, say it with you need to act it. I need to.
You need to feel it.
I need to feel it so I can get my.
We're back in.
I get in my place again.
I got to get into my method acting role. All right.
You pop your neck. Is that how you do it?
I'm actually kind of more relaxed right now.
If you're listening, Glenn's like, moving his neck and like, that's how he.
But if you hear a pop though, it's okay. It's okay. But anyway, all right. End scene.
No, start scene.
I know. I'm starting right now. End scene is the end. That's right. Okay. Action. Right?
Yes.
You're not being available right now.
Okay. Babe.
You didn't even look at me when you came in the house, man.
I get how you feel that way. From my standpoint, I don't necessarily feel like you're available to me either. I want to work on this, but like when I'm going out and doing things, I do hope that you would do sports and the things that I like to do, like activities and fitness. I want you to do those things with me, but you're not there.
Because I'm not a caveman. I'm an evolved woman that wants to express feelings, all right?
I'm grateful, honey, that you're not a caveman. This would be a very disturbing relationship if you were.
But I'm not.
Thanks, Dr. Glen.
But I just want to have a conversation.
I understand, but do you see what I mean, honey? I want to be emotionally there for you, like you're asking, but I'm also hoping that you can do the same. You see what I'm saying?
But I am. But I'm not gonna. This is why I talk to all my friends and I let them know, like, you are a caveman, and I have to always explain to them what you don't understand. How come my friends can understand and then you don't?
Can we go back to lesson number 1? Don't be an asshole.
Hey, we talked about this at the beginning. We talked about this at the beginning. We can go from 5 to 1, right? So anyway.
Well, I would say, that is you completely. I don't know what role you're playing right now, but that would not be resolving the issue, because that would get me to escalate.
Oh, yeah, it's escalated. Yeah.
So from there I would go, I don't get it. I'm literally trying to help and to resolve this, but you're not even seeing your role in this.
Agreed. So that would have to go back to point number 2, which I would have to have the insight and the humility and to say, okay, let me take accountability for my own behaviors.
Yeah.
But if I don't, there is no middle ground to be reached, right? So
it's just going to loop.
And then you're putting your partner, you're basically putting them in this kind of extreme position of either withdraw or follow.
Yeah.
And that's not a healthy solution.
Yeah. Okay. So the way that it was going to go would likely very much end in a fight, for sure. Like we're going to argue, we're going to get loud, we're going to.
Yeah. And then if that's called out.
And no booty.
And no booty for sure. Mm-hmm. Unless they're into like angry booty.
No. I mean, some
booty.
people
are into that.
That is a thing, but no, in general, no.
But this is the thing. Like if I'm like, okay, if I'm not willing to admit my own issues, then there's just a shutdown.
There's no place for the conversation to go. If ownership can't be had, there is no place for the conversation to go.
And this is another common thing. So if it doesn't go anywhere, you're arguing for something that you yourself are not doing. You're
Correct.
saying that this is what it should be. I want a middle ground. I want things to be peaceful. I want this, but you're not demonstrating or you're not doing your part to get to that space.
Yeah, funny enough, when I hear people say happy wife, happy life, or any of those words that kind of indicate one person just spending their life pleasing the other, it can go either way. This is what I think of. I think of one person being, completely unaware and lacking ownership, and the other person basically just doing everything they can to appease them to keep the peace.
And that's not a healthy relationship.
Not at all.
Yeah. And what about happy dude, happy mood?
Same thing though. I like that. Happy dude, happy mood.
Man. Thanks, man. Yeah. Got to even this out, man.
Happy man, happy plan. No. Don't try to think of those on the spot. That just doesn't work. No. Okay. Let's go into number 4, because this kind of plays into everything, that we've been doing. It's having unrealistic expectations of the other person.
Yeah. So like, you brought it up earlier before we were shooting, which is like an expectation. My expectation is communication and connection. And I'm forcing that core value set onto you when maybe that's probably not yours. That's unrealistic.
Yeah, we might both share, we talk about this a lot throughout our program, right? We might both very much value connection and that human connection with another person, with our friends, but the way that we express it, which we refer to as expressions, could be completely different. Your expression of connection might be these conversations, these long and drawn out conversations with your friends where you get emotional and, you cry together and you drink wine and do all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That is your idea of connection. Mm-hmm. My idea of connection might be getting together with the guys and shooting the shit. It might be like, going and doing some sort of sporting activity. Mm-hmm. It might be going with you on a hike and having our discussion about that. Or maybe I would love to read a book and be able to have that conversation together. But we both value the same thing, but our expressions of that thing are completely different. And what's happening is that your expectations are based on the way that you express your values. They're based on the way that you approach things, and you're projecting them onto me.
Yeah, you're saying that in such a nice way. I want to say it. I'm going to translate it a little bit differently.
I feel like this is backwards.
Unrealistic expectations. This is what unrealistic expectations means to me. Give it to me because I want it. And that's the mentality. And they don't see anything else. I deserve it. I want it. And that's the expectation. You should give it. That is unrealistic. There's no space to actually make things work.
Everybody that's listening or watching this, can you please comment and say that this is the Dr. Glen that we want to see on every episode?
It's been an evolution, man. I've been going through like, you know, I said this when we met, like through the years, like I've been kind of like working and resolving all of my issues in this past year, whether it's family, relationships, like the job things, and then just being clear and understanding who I am. So like this healthy space of moving and the working with clients, I feel like I'm moving into this, I'm shedding, I'm letting go. I'm letting certain things go. And then there's like an evolution, and then just doing the work.
Well, it's funny because if you go back and listen to earlier episodes, like our very first, every time I'm talking with Glenn, I'm like, just bring this. It's just this conversation. Let's just have this conversation, but recorded. And then we start filming and you get back into clinician mode.
Because I was trained to do that for 20 years.
I know. It's a very...
And, you know, this is a crazy thing too, like working with the clients, it's such a more intentional and transparent space. So it's more, there's a lot of energy versus I could see 8-10 clients straight before.
Yeah.
And then I realized, man, because there was such an emotional disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just been this evolution, man.
Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So anyway, these unrealistic.
Give it to me. That's the unrealistic. That's the unrealistic person. That's their mentality.
Well, and the problem too is that going back to seeing yourself as the correct one, seeing yourself as the more healthy one, you think that the expectation is normal, that is justified, but in reality, it's not. In reality, there are certain expectations that, you know, you shouldn't try to change or compromise, ones that are based on like legitimate core values, like, you know, almost 10 commandment style, like don't betray, you know, loyalty, those type of things. Those expectations are set. Don't change those. But otherwise, if we're talking about the way that we express ourselves, if we're talking about the way that we connect, if we're talking about a specific way that we do something, we have to go back to recognize that there isn't a healthy or unhealthy here. It's just two different ways of getting to the same place. So in those cases, those expectations do need to be adjusted.
No, agreed. But if you're the person that give it to me because that's what I want and I'm entitled to it, you need to check yourself.
Well, again, when there's no awareness or ownership, there is no conversation to be had.
And then moving into that healthier space that you're describing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to our fifth and final piece. This is not validating your partner's efforts to kind of connect and reach you.
Yeah. So going back to the example that we gave, and you're like, I'm trying, or help me understand. Instead of me like seeing it, you know, I'm saying connect with me, and you are. I'm just disregarding it and still putting you down.
Yeah, that's a weird one because you can watch that one unfold right in front of you from the coach, the therapist standpoint. One person can literally be saying, I'm trying, please help me to get there. And the other person saying, but you're not. Mm-hmm. You don't care. You don't. And it's like, whoa, if you can't, your partner is kind of reaching out. They're making an attempt to connect. This was one of those things that was actually something that in the Gottman Institute, they talked about quite a bit, where if one of the partners refuses these attempts to connect, and I forget the exact term that they used. Do you remember what it was?
I forgot.
Yeah. But this moment of reaching out, if one person can't recognize it, it was a sign of, you know, the relationship is not going in a good place.
Yeah. Then it leads to like the 4 horsemen that he talks about.
Yeah. Because if you can't even see that I'm making that effort and acknowledge that, then it doesn't go any other place other than resentment.
No, agreed. And in terms of like 12-week relationship terminology, that's low regard. You're showing low regard for your partner, and it's going to vice versa. They're going to have low regard for you.
Correct. It eventually erodes regard to the point where like you don't respect the other person. You don't look up to them. You don't want anything to really do with them because they can't acknowledge and they can't see these things. And so if you stay, it's basically just a large compromise. I'm going to stay and I'm going to, do whatever I need to do just to keep him or her happy. And that's it. And that kind of works maybe for a time. Maybe you can make it work for your life, but it's going to sacrifice so much of your own emotional energy, your own time, your own life to do so. And in most cases, it doesn't go that far. It just leads to an eventual breakdown.
Yeah. And once again, going back to like this example, like if I'm that person, right? And this happens a lot because, once again, there has to be individual accountability. So let's say like during the session, okay, you point it out and you're like, I'm trying, honey. Or, and then I kind of break away from the pain and I'm like, yeah, honey, I see it. And I get very tearful and I'm like, that's beautiful that you're reaching out. And then 2 minutes later, but you're still an asshole. And then it just loops back. And then there's no momentum built on the healthy connection that takes place because I just keep going back to my pain.
Yeah.
And that's a common thing that continues to take place when that person is in that space. It's too unrealistic. They have no insight other than they're only seeing everything in their pain.
And that, I think, is a topic for we're going to do another episode on that, because oftentimes we build relationships around our pain, around our trauma. We refer to these as attachment relationships. And so where the relationship kind of has no place to go other than back to these past traumas, these pains and those kind of things. And we've built the relationship around that. But that's a separate issue that I think we should address for sure. Otherwise though, I think we're done. If you can take these points of kind of these ideas of how to have conflict into your relationship, you'll find that conflict actually becomes a very healthy thing. And conflict in our view from our program and from our approach, conflict is a good thing, at least when it's healthy conflict, because through each resolving or through each resolution, we get to a place where we kind of go, oh man, if we can handle that, we can handle anything. It's through that conflict that we both kind of align to one another's values. I adopt your values, you adopt mine, and we get to this place where we're centered. It's a necessary and healthy process for the relationship.
Well, it's an expanded view of what conflict means. Instead of conflict meaning that I get what I want, it's let's really meet in the middle and let's make this work for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the important thing to note that when we say that meeting in the middle, a lot of times people think that it's compromise. And what we say is that it's not about you giving up your values. It's about you adopting theirs and them adopting yours.
Yes.
And so usually there's subtle differences in these core values, and we might have a few differing approaches to things. I don't give up mine. I just learn how to respect and adopt yours.
Yeah, it's a real midpoint. It's a real space where everyone wins.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed, well, you can do a number of things. Number one, it's completely free to jump onto iTunes and leave us a review for the podcast. We love it, not only the 5-star rating, but we love it when you guys actually write something, because we read all of them.
Yes.
And there's some really cool reviews up there. So thank you guys for that. And I'd say the second one, if you guys are looking for one-on-one coaching or even online coaching, we're going to have the online coaching program available soon. And like we mentioned at the beginning, you can join the waitlist at 12weekrelationships.com. In the meantime, you can subscribe to us on your favorite place for podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Peace.